This year's wide receiver class is a really deep class, one that maybe we haven't seen before in years, but one of these receivers stands out among this entire pack of really good receivers, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think if you're talking sure things in the NFL draft, there's like one or two every year at skill positions and, throughout the draft, maybe a lineman or whatever. But there's about one or two guys that before the draft that they're going to succeed. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the closest thing to a sure thing that we've seen in a long time. Barring injuries, of course. I don't see a way where he fails. And I'm not afraid to say here that he's a generational wide receiver prospect. He really is. And I think there's the only two other guys that even come close to his level of comparison going into the draft have been that of Randy Moss back in the day and Megatron Calvin Johnson. And he differs from them. I don't think he doesn't have quite the build and the athleticism per se as a guy like Megatron, a guy like Calvin Johnson, and he doesn't have the speed of Moss. But I think he has, fundamentals wise, I think he has both of them beat. And I think if you really look at the tape of Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy's electric. He can play with any. Last year, Ohio State really didn't have a great quarterback. The guy that they had, Kyle McCord, was very underwhelming for him, and he still put up unbelievable numbers. And like I said, he did it with Stroud the one year, and then he showed everybody he did it with a much lesser quarterback. So he's shown that he can succeed with multiple QBs. That's something that he's already shown us, which is a good sign, because who knows in Arizona where I think he's going to land. Kyler Murray's the guy right now, but who knows how long Kyler Murray's going to be the guy, because he seems like the franchise quarterback, but he tend to be injury prone. He's a very short quarterback. If he gets a bad injury, he loses that athleticism, his career shot. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be able to adapt. The dream situation would be for him to fall to 5, to go to the Chargers with Justin Herbert and a proper head coach in play. That would be scary. That would be really scary if he went to the Chargers at 5, but I don't think Arizona's going to let him slip. But yeah, if you just look at the things that Marvin Harrison does well, his ability to just catch the ball when in traffic is unbelievable. When there's a receiver right up on him, there's several examples of this through the season. There's a really good play that he had at the end of the first half in the Michigan game where it was just electric. McCord throws a bad ball and Marvin Harrison just somehow makes that catch, and it was ridiculous. And that's what he did the entire year. He has a really good one against Wisconsin. There's several with Michigan State. His route running is unbelievable too. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes out there. And I think part of it's the pedigree. His dad was an NFL Hall of Famer. He's probably been teaching him fundamentals from the start. But then you mix that with him going to Ohio State with a guy like Brian Hartline, the former offensive coordinator and wide receivers main recruiter and coach. He has developed several wide receiver stars in the NFL. And if you notice, every wide receiver from OSU that gets drafted in the first round has worked. Then they have all worked well. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba had a pretty good year last year. They all work. They've all tend to work. And he's the best one to come out of the crop so far. He's better than Garrett Wilson. He's better than Olave. He's a better prospect than Justin Jefferson going into the NFL. Justin Jefferson's a better receiver right now, but he's a better prospect than he was going into the draft. You put together, if we're talking the Moss comparison, which is on, we're not, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not as quick as Moss, but by no means is he slow. He's if you look at his numbers on when he was on the field, his speed comes together with some of the faster guys in the NFL. But if you go back to the Moss comparison, look at the height disparity between them. They're about the same height, and they were about the same weight. These guys are the same size. And like I said, I think going into the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr. is fundamentally better. And I think the one knock that everybody's having on Marvin Harrison Jr. right now is doesn't want to talk to the media, doesn't want to do the combine, didn't do the pro day. He doesn't have to. He does not have to. And he's got he's listening to his dad, who says it's not important, which it probably isn't. And is he going to say no to his dad? His dad was a Hall of Famer. So I think that and Marvin Harrison Jr. talked all the time at Ohio State in press conferences. He talked all the time. So that's not a problem. He's not a cancer in the locker room. None of that's an issue. That's something that I've been hearing floating around. This is a generational prospect. It's a guy that has the size to be great. His fundamentals are some of the best that I've ever seen in my lifetime going into the draft. And he has athleticism. He has certain bursts of speed that work with him, and his catch radius is through the roof. If you look at some of his highlights, it's clear. I like Malik Neighbors and I like Rome Odunze, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is at a completely different level from him. I think that in Arizona, obviously, he's still going to have a good year. It might take some time. If I'm going to say it here right now, if he somehow falls to the Chargers at 5, which would be crazy, this is a guy that you draft in the top 10 of your fantasy league, because he is going to go off if that happens. But yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., without a doubt, generational prospect, best wide receiver prospect that I've seen in my lifetime. I wasn't around for Moss, wasn't around for Megatron, but since those guys, I will say he's probably been one of the better wide receiver prospects that I've seen.